On the outside, he looked like the perfect husband, a caring father, and a man with a peaceful life and a peaceful home in Colorado. But what happened behind those closed doors shocked the entire nation. This is the chilling case of Chris Watts, a man whose secret changed everything. Chris and Shanann Watts lived a quiet life in the suburbs in Frederick, Colorado. They had two beautiful daughters, Bella and Celeste. Shanann often posted videos of their happy family on social media, showing off her growing belly as she was pregnant with their third child, a baby boy they planned to name Nico. It seemed like your typical picture-perfect family, and nothing in their home hinted at the darkness that would soon unfold. Then, in August 2018, everything changed. The lives of these seemingly happy people took a dramatic turn. On August 13th, Shanann came home from a business trip. She excitedly told her husband she couldn't wait to share the news with him about a potential new job opportunity. The couple had plans for that night, including a romantic dinner. But as the day went on, tensions began to rise between them. By 5:20 p.m., Shanann texted her friend saying, "I'm not happy. This is not okay. I don't know what to do." The friend advised her to stay at her parents' house instead of returning to the family home. But Shanann decided to go back, believing she should try to work things out. Little did she know that this would be the last decision she would ever make. Later that evening, Shanann posted a video on Facebook showing herself and her two daughters dancing in their living room. No one could have guessed that this video would become the last one of her alive. At around 10:15 p.m., Shanann sent her friend another message, writing, "He's in the shower. I don't know where the night will go, but I have a feeling I might need to call the cops." The friend was deeply concerned, so she called the police. However, by the time they arrived, Shanann was gone. Her phone and purse were found inside the house, suggesting she hadn't been kidnapped. But there was no sign of a struggle or forced entry. No one knew where she had gone. In the meantime, Chris appeared on local TV, pleading for his wife's safe return. He described Shanann as an exceptional mother who was devoted to their daughters and had no enemies. The fact that he remained calm and composed throughout the interview raised suspicions. While most people were moved by his obvious grief and concern, investigators found some aspects of his story questionable. When asked why Shanann would leave without her phone, Chris suggested that she must have misplaced it during her walk, yet he couldn't explain why she wouldn't take her daughters with her if she had intended to come back later. As days turned into weeks, the search for Shanann and her daughters intensified. But the lack of leads frustrated everyone involved. Then a breakthrough came unexpectedly. A neighbor reported seeing Chris driving a truck owned by his employer on the morning after Shanann vanished. Surveillance footage from a nearby gas station also caught Chris alone at the pump. He was filling up the same truck. Chris explained that he used the truck for work and was alone because he was on a break. But this explanation didn't hold up under scrutiny. The investigators learned that the company policy prohibited employees from using the trucks after hours. Additionally, Chris's behavior during his interviews with the police seemed off. Despite being questioned as a person of interest, he didn't seem overly concerned or upset. Instead, he appeared confident and calm. Perhaps the most alarming detail was Chris's reaction to the disappearance of his pregnant wife. According to friends and neighbors, Chris didn't seem particularly distressed by the situation. They found it odd that he didn't post anything about Shanann on social media or reach out to others for support. This was especially strange because just months before the incident, Chris had expressed his excitement about becoming a father again. He'd even set up a nursery for baby Nico. When the police searched the Watts family home, they discovered evidence of Chris's infidelity. Shanann had confronted him about his affair, which had been going on for several months. One of his co-workers, Nicholas Moss, revealed that Chris had confessed to having a relationship with her. According to Moss, Chris had expressed feelings of guilt over his actions. He admitted to the affair, saying that he shouldn't have let it happen. He also mentioned that he wasn't sure how long the relationship with his co-worker would continue. When pressed for details about the incident, Moss said that he couldn't recall many specifics, but he was certain that Chris had ended the relationship after Shanann became pregnant for a third time. After learning about the affair, Shanann decided to move out of the family home and seek a divorce. But on the day she disappeared, she changed her mind and returned. She wanted to try to work things out for the sake of their daughters. However, Chris's reaction upon her return was not what Shanann had hoped for. Witnesses reported seeing the couple arguing, and sources close to the investigation claimed that Shanann confronted Chris about the affair. Meanwhile, the community was coming together to support each other during this difficult time. Friends and neighbors organized prayer vigils, hoping for a miracle. But as time passed, the mood shifted from hope to suspicion. Rumors began to circulate that Chris might be involved in his wife's disappearance. Determined to find answers, the police brought Chris in for another round of questioning. This time, they played a recording of Shanann's last phone conversation with her friend. During the crucial moment when she felt she needed to call the police, as she listened to the recording, Chris's demeanor changed. He started to cry and admitted to knowing more than he initially told the police. With tears streaming down his face, he confessed that he had strangled Shanann during an argument. But according to his account, this happened in a fit of anger, not premeditation. He claimed that after Shanann's death, he disposed of her body in an oil tank at his work site. However, when the police searched the oil tanks, they didn't find any evidence of Shanann's presence. Frustrated by his lies, the police continued to question Chris, urging him to come clean. Eventually, he led them to a remote location in rural Colorado. There, the officers made a horrifying discovery. The bodies of Shanann, Bella, and Celeste were found buried in 3 separate shallow graves. The revelation left the community in shock. No one could believe that Chris was capable of such brutality. The police later learned that Chris had killed his daughters after Shanann refused to let him see them. He wanted to start a new life with his mistress and saw his daughters as an obstacle. To achieve his goal, he lured Shanann into the basement under the pretense of discussing a possible reconciliation. Once she was in the basement, he strangled her to death. Afterward, he went upstairs to check on their daughters, who were sleeping. He smothered them with a blanket until they stopped breathing. After disposing of his wife and daughter's bodies, Chris drove to a local motel where he stayed for 2 nights. He showered, packed his belongings, and bought new clothes. When he returned home, he cleaned the house, even washing his daughter's blood-stained bedding. Throughout the investigation, Chris displayed a lack of remorse or empathy for his actions. During an interview with a detective, he was asked why he didn't just leave if he was unhappy in his marriage. Chris replied that he couldn't because Shanann would have taken their daughters away from him. He also admitted to having feelings of anger and frustration, but denied any thoughts of hurting his wife. However, his story quickly fell apart under scrutiny. Surveillance footage revealed that he had been planning his actions for some time. He'd researched the motel on his computer and even tried to buy a shovel, but couldn't find one in his size. Furthermore, text messages showed that he had discussed the possibility of killing Shanann with his mistress. When he was finally charged with 9 counts of murder and 3 counts of tampering with a deceased human body, he showed no signs of remorse or fear. During his trial, Chris pleaded not guilty, but the prosecution had a strong case against him, presenting a mountain of evidence, including his confession, DNA analysis, and surveillance footage. In the end, the jury found him guilty on all counts. During the sentencing phase, Chris's defense attorneys tried to portray him as a good father who acted in a moment of anger rather than a cold-hearted killer. They argued that he had no criminal record and had never shown violent tendencies. However, the prosecution pointed out that Chris had been planning his actions for weeks and had even Googled the motel where he later stayed. They emphasized his lack of remorse and his attempts to cover up his crime as evidence of his true character. In the end, the judge had no choice but to sentence Chris to 5 life sentences without the possibility of parole. As he was led away in handcuffs, he showed no emotion. He had betrayed the trust of his family, friends, and community. The case shocked the nation and raised questions about the pressures of modern relationships and the dark side of human nature. So what drove Chris to commit such heinous acts? Some believe his affair caused him to act out, while others point to his desire for a new life as a motive. But ultimately, only Chris knows the truth. After spending years in solitary confinement, Chris was transferred to a prison in Wisconsin. Away from the media attention, he'll spend the rest of his life behind bars, haunted by the memories of his victims. Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, please hit the thumbs up button and subscribe for more content.